Hello everyone, good morning! Alright, so, it's morning today, and it's Journey with Jesus, a podcast by Love Chinny. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Alright, so for today, I am going to read Genesis chapter 12. God promises a nation to Abram. The call of Abram. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." Verse 2. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. Verse 3. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse you. And all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Verse 4. So Abram left, as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. Verse 5. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Verse 6. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Verse 7. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. Verse 8. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord, and called on the name of the Lord. Verse 9. Then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. Verse 10. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while, because the famine was severe. Verse 11. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know what a beautiful woman you are." Verse 12. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, "This is his wife." Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Verse 13. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. Verse 14. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that she was a very beautiful woman. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace. Verse 16. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, manservants and maidservants, and camels. Verse 17. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. Verse 18. So Pharaoh summoned Abram. "What have you done to me?" he said. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife?" Verse 19. "Why did you say she's my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go." Verse 20. Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. Amen. Alright, so I'll just want to share to you guys, this the truths, or the truths in this chapter. So in verses 1 to 3, when God called him, Abram moved out in faith from Ur to Haran, and finally to Canaan. God then established a covenant with Abram, telling him that he would found a great nation. Not only would this nation be blessed, God said, but the other nations of the earth would be blessed through Abram's descendants. Israel, the nation that would come from Abram, was to follow God and influence those with whom it came in contact. Through Abram's family tree, Jesus Christ was born to save humanity. Through Christ, people can have a personal relationship with God and be blessed beyond measure. God promised. God promised to bless Abram and make him great. But there was one condition. Abram had to do what God wanted him to do. This meant leaving his home and friends and traveling to a new land where God promised to build a great nation from Abram's family. Abram obeyed, walked away from his home for God's promise of even greater blessing in the future. God may be trying to lead you to a place of greater service and usefulness for Him. Don't let the comfort and security of your present position make you miss God's plan for you. And in verse 5, we can see that God planned to develop a nation of people He would call His own. And He called Abram from the godless, self-centered city of Ur to a fertile region called Canaan, where a God-centered, moral nation could be established. Though small in dimension, the land of Canaan was the focal point for most of the history of Israel, as well as for the rise of Christianity. This small land, given to one man, Abram, has had a tremendous impact on world history. In verse 7, we can see that Abram built an altar to the Lord. Altars were used in many religions, but for God's people, altars were more than places of sacrifice. For them, altars symbolized communion with God and commemorated notable encounters with Him. Built of rough stones and earth, altars often remained in place for years as continual reminders of God's protection and promises. Now, Abram regularly built altars to God for two reasons. 1, for prayer and worship. 2 is as reminders of God's promise to bless him. Abram couldn't survive spiritually without regularly renewing his love and loyalty to God. Building altars helped Abraham remember that God was at the center of his life. Regular worship helps us remember that God desires and motivates us to obey Him. In verse 10, we can see that there was a famine that struck in where Abraham was. Now, Abram went to Egypt where there was food. Now, why would there be a famine in the land where God had just called Abram? Let me tell you something. This was a test of Abraham's faith, and Abraham passed. He didn't question God's leading when facing this difficulty. Many believers find that when they determine to follow God, they immediately encounter great obstacles. The next time you face such a test, don't try to second guess what God is doing. Use the intelligence God gave you, as Abraham did when he temporarily moved to Egypt and wait for new opportunities. Now in verses 11 to 13, we can see that Abram, acting out of fear, asked Sarai to tell a half-truth by saying she was his sister. She was his half-sister, but she was also his wife. You can see it in chapter 20, verse 12. Abram's intent was to deceive the Egyptians. He feared that if they knew the truth, they would kill him to get Sarai. She would have been a desirable addition to Pharaoh's harem because of her wealth, beauty, potential for political alliance. As Sarai's brother, Abram would have been given a place of honor. As her husband, however, his life would be in danger because Sarai could not enter Pharaoh's harem unless Abram was dead. So Abram lost faith in God's protection, even after all God had promised him and told a half-truth. Now, this shows how lying compounds the effects of sin. When he lied, Abraham's problems multiplied. It multiplied. So, I hope you guys have learned a thing or two in this session, a journey with the Lord. And that's just it for today. And thank you for listening. Have a great day. This is Chani. Bye.